Hi, my name is Arthur, and this is Broken Australia. If you spent anywhere between $1,500 and $3,000 on a new split system air conditioner in the last 5 years, there is a better than even chance you bought a machine that was designed to fail before your last mortgage payment. Australian summers are not getting easier. They are getting longer, hotter, and more brutal. And the industry selling you the machines to survive them has spent the last 2 decades quietly gutting everything that made them work. Today, I am going to show you exactly how they did it. The golden era of Australian cooling. Let me take you back to 1979. A Sparky in Penrith installs a carrier window unit in a fibro house in Western Sydney. That unit runs through the Ash Wednesday fires, the Sydney Olympics, 3 federal elections, and 2 decades of rate rises. It finally gets pulled out in 2009, not because it broke, but because the bloke selling the new one said it was inefficient. And honestly, fair enough. It had earned its retirement. That is not a made-up story. That is the lived experience of an entire generation of Australians who grew up knowing that an air conditioner was something you bought once. The early units sold in Australia through the 70s and 80s were built on commercial refrigeration principles. The compressors were cast alloy. The electrical components were over-engineered for the heat loads they would face. The capacitors, the small cylindrical components that start and run the motor, were rated for voltage tolerances well above what the grid would ever throw at them. And the refrigerant systems were sealed, simple, and designed to hold charge for decades without intervention. Brands like Carrier, Train, and the early Daikin commercial units coming into Australia were not consumer appliances in the way we think about consumer appliances today. They were industrial equipment that happened to be installed in homes. The engineering philosophy behind them was overbuilt for application, meaning the machine was designed to handle significantly more stress than it would ever face in a residential setting. That margin of over-engineering is exactly what produced a 30-year lifespan. Then, starting in the late 1990s and accelerating through the 2000s, 3 things happened simultaneously. Manufacturing shifted almost entirely to mainland China. Australian retail consolidation handed buying power to a small number of large chains who competed almost entirely on sticker price. And the big international brands responded by developing a 2-tier product strategy. Tier 1, the commercial and semi-commercial units they sold to builders, hotels, and facilities managers who would hold them accountable for performance over time. Tier 2, the residential line, built to a price point, designed to pass the Energy Star rating on the label and to survive the warranty period on the wall. You were always buying Tier 2. The brochure just never mentioned that. What actually changed inside the machine? Here is where it gets specific. And I want you to pay attention because this is the information the salesperson at Harvey Norman absolutely does not have and would not tell you if they did. 4 engineering changes gutted the modern split system. Each one individually shortens the machine's life. Together, they turned a 30-year appliance into a 7 to 10-year appliance on a good day. Change 1, the inverter control board. Modern split systems use inverter technology. An inverter varies compressor speed based on demand, rather than switching the compressor fully on and off. On paper, it is genuinely better technology, more efficient, quieter, and better at temperature control. The problem is not the concept. The problem is the components used to build the board. A quality inverter board uses capacitors rated to 105 degrees Celsius, with a voltage tolerance buffer well above normal operating conditions. A builder-grade residential unit uses capacitors rated to 85 degrees Celsius with almost no buffer. In an outdoor unit mounted on a north-facing wall in Broken Hill in January, the cabinet temperature can hit 60, 70, even 80 degrees on a bad afternoon. Those capacitors are operating at the edge of their specification the day you first switch the unit on. After 5 Australian summers, they fail. The board fails with them. Replacement cost is $600 to $1,200. On a unit that cost $1,500 new, you are already doing the maths. Change 2, the compressor housing. The compressor pressurizes the refrigerant and drives the entire cooling cycle. It is the heart of the system. Units from the 80s and 90s used cast alloy scroll housings, heavy, thermally stable, and dimensionally consistent across extreme temperature swings. Modern budget compressors use powder metal components or, in the cheapest units, high-density plastic composites. Those materials are fine at stable temperatures, but in Australian conditions, where an outdoor unit cycles from 12 degrees overnight to 45 degrees in the afternoon, the thermal expansion and contraction across those components creates microwear that cast alloy simply would not produce. After 8 to 10 years, efficiency drops, the compressor draws more current, and the already stressed inverter board begins overcycling to compensate. One failure accelerates the other. The engineers who designed this knew that. The pricing team who approved the components knew it too. Change 3. The refrigerant transition used to cut costs, not save the planet. The shift from R22 to R32 was partly driven by genuine environmental concerns. That part is real. But manufacturers use the transition as cover to redesign the refrigerant circuit with thinner copper pipe walls and lower-grade flare fittings, because R32 operates at lower pressures, and those cheaper components are technically adequate. Not durable, not overbuilt, just adequate. The result is refrigerant leaks appearing between 3 and 7 years in correctly installed units. In badly installed units, leaks occur even faster. Change 4. The drain pan and housing materials. Every internal housing component on a modern residential split system is injection molded plastic. The drain pan, the fan barrel, the louver arms, the bracket clips. All of it warps under heat cycles, degrades under ultraviolet, and produces the mold problems every Australian eventually discovers when they pull the cover off after a long summer. A warped drain pan does not drain. Water that does not drain sits, and mold that sits grows. That is not a cleaning problem. It is an engineering decision made in a factory in Guangdong that you paid for with your credit card. Here is something the industry does not advertise. Walk into any appliance retailer in Australia and you will see what looks like a competitive marketplace. Daikin, Mitsubishi Electric, Fujitsu, Samsung, Kelvinator, Panasonic, Carrier, TCL, dozens of brands, hundreds of models, different price points, different brochures, different salespeople with different lanyards telling you different things. But behind the scenes, there is consolidation. A significant portion of those machines come from a very small number of manufacturing facilities in mainland China. Some of them come off the same production line with different badges applied at the end. Let me give you a specific example. Kelvinator is an American brand name that has been licensed across many corporate transactions over the decades, and it is now essentially a sticker. The units sold under the Kelvinator name in Australia are manufactured in China by a contract manufacturer. They are not engineered by Kelvinator. There is no Kelvinator engineering team. There is a licensing agreement and a badge. The Mistral brand, sold through various Australian retailers, operates on exactly the same model. The badge is Australian market-facing. The machine behind it is a generic Chinese residential unit built to hit a price point. And here's the part that should bother you. That same contract manufacturer in Guangdong may be producing a mid-tier unit for a recognizable international brand at the same time as they are producing the Kelvinator and Mistral units. The cabinet dimensions are different, the badge is different, the internal components come from the same supplier catalogue. The price gap is $500. The engineering gap is a label. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a standard practice in consumer electronics manufacturing called original equipment manufacturer supply, and the air conditioning industry runs on it. The brands that actually engineer their own products, where an identifiable team of engineers designed the compressor selection, the inverter board specification, the pipe sizing, and the quality control tolerances, are a short list. I will give you that list. But first, let us talk about the brands repair technicians in Australia tell their friends to avoid. Now, here are the 3 brands repair technicians in Australia tell you to avoid. I want to be clear before we go any further. I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is what experienced air conditioning technicians across Australia, the people who go inside these machines for a living, say consistently when nobody from the industry is listening. Experienced. Brand 1, Samsung. You already heard about Samsung washing machines on this channel. Yes, I know, they keep showing up. I promise I am not targeting them. They just have a gift for appearing on lists like this one. Samsung's air conditioning range is aggressively marketed in Australia and priced to move. The problem is the inverter board. Samsung uses proprietary control board architecture, which means when it fails, there is no compatible aftermarket replacement. You need a genuine Samsung board. Samsung's parts supply chain in Australia is, to put it diplomatically, inconsistent. Technicians report waiting 6 to 12 weeks for boards on units that are 3 years old. During that time, your unit sits on the wall doing nothing. Some independent technicians refuse to quote on Samsung repairs because the part situation makes a reliable timeline impossible. A machine you cannot get fixed is a machine that gets replaced. That is exactly what Samsung's retail division would prefer. Brand 2, Kelvinator. Not engineered for Australian conditions. Engineered to hit a retail price point and to clear a shipping container. The inverter boards fail early, the compressors are bottom-tier scroll units, and the parts situation is worse than Samsung because there is no central manufacturer to even call when something goes wrong. I asked a senior technician in Brisbane what he tells his family when they ask about Kelvinator. He said he tells them he will install it for free if they promise never to call him when it breaks. Brand 3 is the budget Daikin trap. Daikin is a Japanese company with genuine engineering credibility, and they also appear on the good list later in this video. That distinction matters. Their budget residential line, the C-Series and lower-end Alira models sold through volume retailers for under $1,500, uses cost-reduced components that do not reflect the reliability of Daikin's better range. Technicians call it retail Daikin versus real Daikin. The badge is the same, the machine behind it is not. TCL gets a mention too, new to Australian retail, price aggressive, and currently operating with a parts supply chain that essentially does not exist. Buying TCL right now is a genuine act of faith. The installer problem nobody warned you about. Here is something nobody in the air conditioning industry wants to say out loud. You can buy the best split system Mitsubishi Electric has ever produced, have it delivered to your door in perfect condition, and then have it completely destroyed by the person who installs it. In Australia's current installation market, that is not a remote possibility. It is a documented pattern. The discount installation industry, the $89 install special you see advertised through online retailers and comparison sites, operates on the same logic as the builder-grade construction industry. Volume over quality. The installer is paid per job, not per hour. Every minute spent doing the job properly is a minute unpaid. The result is a set of recurring shortcuts that a quality technician can spot from across the room. Shortcut 1. Incorrect pipe flaring. The copper pipe connecting the indoor and outdoor unit has to be flared at both ends to create a seal against the refrigerant fittings. Correct flaring requires a calibrated flaring tool, correct technique, and a visual inspection of the finished flare before connection. Rushed flaring produces micro cracks in the flare face that are invisible at installation and produce a slow refrigerant leak over the following 18 to 36 months. By the time you notice the unit is not cooling properly, you have lost most of your refrigerant charge and the compressor has been running in a low charge condition long enough to accelerate internal wear. Shortcut 2. No nitrogen flush. Before a refrigerant system is charged, the pipe circuit should be flushed with dry nitrogen to remove moisture and contamination from inside the copper. On a rushed installation, this step gets skipped. Moisture inside a refrigerant circuit reacts with the refrigerant and the compressor oil to form acids. Those acids attack the compressor internals from the inside. You cannot see it, and you cannot hear it until the compressor fails. At that point, the failure is classified as a wear item, not an installation defect. and your warranty does not cover it. Shortcut 3. Undersized or kinked pipe runs. The pipe diameter specified by the manufacturer for each unit size is not a suggestion. It is an engineering requirement. A budget installer who runs undersized pipe to use up stock from a previous job, or who routes pipe in a sharp bend to avoid drilling through a wall, creates a restriction in the refrigerant circuit that forces the compressor to work harder than it was designed to. Over 5 years, that extra load shows up as a dead compressor on a unit that should have lasted 15 years. Shortcut 4. Not vacuuming the system properly. Before refrigerant is added, the system should be evacuated with a vacuum pump to remove all air and moisture from the circuit. A proper evacuation takes time. The shortcut is a partial vacuum that looks fine on a gauge and that hides contamination, which destroys the system from within over the following years. The single most important thing you can do when buying a split system in Australia, outside of buying the right brand, is to pay for a quality installation by a licensed refrigerant handling technician who charges appropriately for their time. If the installation quote sounds too cheap, it is because it is. The machine you paid $2,000 for can be turned into a 5-year liability by a 3-hour installation done by someone whose business model depends on doing it in 90 minutes. The buying rule. Repair technicians across Australia have a shorthand they use when a customer calls asking what to buy. It is 2 questions, not 1. 2. Question 1. What is the compressor warranty? Not the parts warranty, not the labour warranty, the compressor warranty specifically. The compressor is the most expensive single component in the system. It is the failure that produces the repair bill that pushes you toward buying a new machine. A manufacturer who is confident in their compressor gives it a long warranty. A manufacturer who knows what is inside their compressor gives you a 1-year warranty and buries the exclusions. Mitsubishi Electric offers a 5-year warranty on their compressor on selected residential models with registration. Daikin's upper residential range carries a 5-year parts warranty. Fujitsu General's mid-range carries similar coverage. The budget brands carry 1 year. 1 year on a machine you are installing into an Australian home that will see 45-degree summers for the next 15 years. If a manufacturer is only willing to stand behind their compressor for 12 months, they are telling you something. Listen to them. Question 2. Are spare parts available in Australia for this model, and for how long? This question will make most salespeople visibly uncomfortable. Ask it anyway. Ask specifically whether the inverter control board for the model you are considering is stocked in Australia, or if it needs to be ordered from overseas. Ask how long the manufacturer commits to making spare parts available after the model is discontinued. The answer from a quality brand will be specific and confident. The answer from a budget brand will be vague, deflective, or wrong. Daikin Australia stocks parts locally for their supported range for a minimum of 7 years after model discontinuation. Mitsubishi Electric Australia has a similar commitment. Fujitsu General's national parts distribution is among the best in the industry. Samsung will tell you parts are available. Ask the independent technicians in your city what they actually find when they go to order a board. The buying rule is simple. Check the compressor warranty, check the parts availability. Everything else on the brochure is marketing. The 3 brands worth buying. After everything I have just shown you, here is what repair technicians, independent assessors, and the people who go inside these machines for a living actually recommend. Number 3. Fujitsu General, not Fujitsu the electronics brand. Fujitsu General is a separate company from Fujitsu's broader electronics business, and it focuses specifically on air conditioning. Fujitsu General has manufactured air conditioning equipment since 1972, and their Australian market presence goes back decades. Their mid-range residential units, the standard inverter and the high-efficiency series, use Fujitsu General specified compressors and inverter boards that carry a genuine engineering pedigree behind them. Their service network in Australia is strong, their parts availability is reliable, and their units consistently appear in the lower failure rate brackets when technicians track callback data across brands. They are not the cheapest option. They are not supposed to be. You are paying for a machine that was designed to be serviced and to last. For a standard Australian home installation, the Fujitsu General mid-range sits between $1,700 and $2,400 installed by a quality technician. That is the right price for the right machine. Number 2, Mitsubishi Electric. I need to make an important distinction here because Australians get caught by this every single year. Mitsubishi Electric and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries are two completely separate companies producing air conditioning equipment under similar names. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries units are manufactured under license and distributed through different channels. They are not the same product. Mitsubishi Electric's residential split system range, the GE series, and the higher specification AP and PEA series for larger spaces, is built to a specification that reflects genuine Japanese engineering rigor. The compressor selection, the inverter board component quality, and the build tolerances are measurably different from the budget tier. In Australia, Mitsubishi Electric units consistently appear in technician surveys as among the lowest service call rate brands in the residential market. Their outdoor unit construction uses materials rated for Australian ambient temperature conditions in a way that cheap imports are not. Their 5-year warranty with registration is backed by a local parts operation that actually has stock. If I am being completely honest, and that is the whole point of this channel, the Mitsubishi Electric GE series is probably the best balance of performance, reliability, and price available in the Australian residential market right now. In a standard 5 kilowatt configuration for a medium-sized room, you are looking at around $2,000 to $2,400 for the unit. Add a quality installation by a licensed technician who actually vacuums the system properly and uses correctly sized pipe, and you are at around $3,000 all in. That is not a cheap air conditioner. It is a 15-year air conditioner. Divide 3,000 by 15 and compare it to dividing 1,500 by 6. The maths is not complicated. Number 1, Daikin, but the right Daikin. The top recommendation, and this is consistent across every experienced technician I have spoken to in preparing this video, which full disclosure has taken considerably longer than my wife thinks it has, is Daikin, the right Daikin. Specifically the Daikin Alira X, the Daikin Cora upper configuration, or, if your budget allows, the Daikin Xena or the commercial adjacent Ururu Sarara range. These are not the units on the floor at Harvey Norman with the sale tag. These are the units sold through Daikin's own supply network, installed by Daikin-trained technicians, and backed by Daikin's local parts infrastructure. What makes the premium Daikin range genuinely different is the compressor. Daikin manufactures their own swing compressors, rather than sourcing them from a third-party catalogue. That vertical integration, a company that designs and builds its own most critical component, produces a measurably different failure rate compared to a brand that buys whatever scroll compressor fits the price point this quarter. Daikin's top residential units are also notable for what they do not have. They do not have the same plastic drain pan issues, the same flimsy louver mechanisms, or the same inverter board voltage tolerance problems that characterize the budget tier. These are machines built with an engineering philosophy that assumes you will still own this unit in 2040. The price reflects that. A Daikin Alira X in a 5 kilowatt configuration will cost you between $2,200 and $2,800 for the unit, and you want to pair it with a quality installation. All in, you are looking at $3,000 to $3,500. Spend it once. The $300 insurance policy. Now I want to talk to the people who already own a builder-grade split system. Maybe you bought a house and it came with a Kelvinator. Maybe you bought the Samsung when it was on sale 3 years ago. Maybe you are reading this chapter header with the specific expression of someone who just recognized their own situation. I see you. You cannot unbuy what you have already bought, but you can significantly extend its life with a maintenance protocol that most Australians never perform because nobody told them it existed. Step 1. Annual professional service, not a filter clean. A full service performed by a licensed refrigerant handling technician. That includes coil cleaning on both the indoor and outdoor unit, a refrigerant pressure check, an electrical component inspection including the capacitor, and a drain pan flush. In Australia, this costs between $150 and $250, depending on your location and the size of the unit. Most Australians have never had their air conditioner serviced in their life. The filter gets pulled out and rinsed under a tap once every 2 years, and that is considered adequate maintenance. It is not. The outdoor coil on a unit that has never been professionally cleaned after 5 Australian summers is operating at a fraction of its rated efficiency. It runs the compressor harder than it should, and it generates the heat loads inside the cabinet that kill the inverter board capacitors on the accelerated schedule we discussed in Chapter 2. A $150 service every year is the cheapest insurance policy in Australian home ownership, and almost nobody buys it. Step 2, proactive capacitor replacement. The run capacitor, the component that keeps the compressor motor running after startup, degrades predictably with heat exposure. In a budget tier unit running through Australian summers, the capacitor typically reaches the end of its useful life between year 5 and year 7. A capacitor does not always fail dramatically. It often just degrades, causing the compressor to work harder on each startup cycle, accelerating wear and eventually producing the catastrophic failure that a technician will quote you $800 to repair. A quality replacement capacitor costs between $20 and $40 in parts. The labour to replace it during an annual service is minimal. Ask your technician to check capacitor health with a capacitance meter at each annual service, and to replace it proactively when it reads below 80% of its rated value. That $40 part, replaced at the right time, can add 2 to 3 years to a compressor that would otherwise have failed. Step 3. Outdoor unit clearance and shading. This one costs nothing. The outdoor unit of a split system requires adequate airflow across the condenser coil to reject heat efficiently. A unit installed by someone in a hurry, and given everything we discussed in Chapter 5, you know what that means, is often placed too close to a wall, inside a recess, or directly under a pergola that restricts outlet air from dispersing. In Australian summer conditions, a restricted outdoor unit can add 10 to 15 degrees Celsius to the ambient temperature it is operating in. That temperature goes directly into the components we have been talking about all video. Check your outdoor unit clearances against the manufacturer's specification. It is in the installation manual. I know you have not looked at it because nobody looks at the installation manual. The minimum clearances are typically 200 to 300 millimeters on the sides and 1 meter above the outlet. If yours is sitting in a slot that makes those clearances impossible, talk to your technician about relocation options. Add some shade over the outdoor unit where you can, without restricting outlet airflow. A shaded condenser in a Western Australian summer can run 5 to 8 degrees cooler than an unshaded one. 5 to 8 degrees over 10 years of operation is a meaningful difference in component life. Total cost of all 3 steps in year 1 is around $250 to $300, including the service and the proactive capacitor check. That is the cost of one service call when something breaks. You are spending it before the break instead of after it. Here is where we land. The average Australian household replaces their air conditioning system every 8 to 12 years. At current retail prices, that is between $1,500 and $3,000 plus installation every decade. Over a 30-year period, you are spending between $5,000 and $10,000 on air conditioning if you keep buying the cheap machine. The quality machine, bought once, installed properly, and serviced annually, costs more on day 1, significantly more. Nobody is pretending otherwise, but the machine that costs $3,000 and lasts 20 years is not an expensive air conditioner. It is the cheap one spread across 2 decades instead of crammed into one afternoon at Harvey Norman. Here is the rule: check the compressor warranty. If it is 1 year, walk away. Check the parts availability. If the salesperson cannot tell you whether the inverter board is stocked in Australia, walk away and pay for a quality installation. I cannot say this enough. The best machine in the world, installed badly, is a countdown clock sitting on your wall. The brands worth your money are Fujitsu General, Mitsubishi Electric, not Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and Daikin's upper residential range, not the sale floor, the proper range. The brands that repair technicians shake their heads about are Samsung, Kelvinator, Budget Tier TCL, and anything sold under a badge that you cannot trace to an actual engineering organization. If you already own one of the machines we talked about avoiding, get an annual service, a proactive capacitor check, and outdoor unit clearance. $300 a year is cheaper than the alternative. Australian summers are getting worse. The manufacturers selling you the machines to survive them are, by and large, betting that you will not read the warranty, will not ask about parts availability, and will not notice that the machine you just paid $2,000 for was built to the same minimum standard as everything else on that retail floor. Do not give them the satisfaction. Drop a comment right now and tell me, how long did your last air conditioner last? I genuinely want to know. I am betting most of you are going to say somewhere between 5 and 9 years, and I am betting a few of you will say you have a Fujitsu from 2003 that is still running fine, and frankly, I am delighted for you. My name is Arthur. This is Broken Australia. Next week we are going inside the electrical panel and we are naming the circuit breaker brand that is sitting in 30 million Australian homes and has been linked to house fires across the country. You will want to know if yours is one of them. Subscribe so you do not miss it.